Hello everyone, thanks for all your comments on the discussion boards for week 2. I thought this might be a good juncture for me to come back in and talk a little bit about some of the topics that have been raised there. I've been reading the discussion boards and been keeping notes here and there, as of some of the tutors that are helping out with this MOOC. The first thing that caught my eye was some of the remarks about the Gettier cases. So some of you thought the cases were very far-fetched, very contrived. Why should we care about these kind of cases? Well, what I would suggest here is that, look, although then some of these cases are very complicated, actually some of them are phenomenally simple. I mean, the case that I give of the sheep, the farmer, and the sheep in the field, I think is actually a very straightforward kind of case. Moreover, I think once you understand the structure of the Gettier cases, it becomes apparent that these kind of cases happen all the time. So it's not as if this is some sort of scenario which is kind of sci-fi or something like that, not the kind of scenario which doesn't affect ordinary life. I think ordinary life is in fact full of Gettier-style cases. And this relates to a second issue which some people raise, which is, I think some people thought, well, look, if we have to exclude Gettier cases, then aren't we somehow requiring certainty for knowledge or something like that? But that's not part of the thought that's going on here. In fact, as I said in the lectures, I explicitly disavowed the idea that knowledge requires certainty. I don't think that's very plausible. What I want to do is actually set the bar for knowledge relatively low, and then see if our beliefs clear it. And I think actually that the demand that we have beliefs, true beliefs that aren't Gettierized is a pretty minimal demand to make on knowledge. I mean, one would hope that all of our beliefs clear that hurdle, right? I mean, if they're properly formed in the right kind of circumstances, then they ought to clear it. So I don't think we should think that either the Gettier problem or Gettier-style cases relates to somehow far-fetched or sci-fi scenarios. I don't think it's like that at all. And I don't think it raises the bar for knowledge either. I think that you can still think of the bar for knowledge as being quite low, and yet think that one ought to clear, one ought to have a true belief that isn't subject to Gettier cases if one is to clear that bar. Second thing that caught out my eye was to do with skepticism. A few things I want to emphasize here. One is this, that notice the skeptic is not saying that you are a brain in a vat, or even that you have any reason for thinking you are a brain in a vat. That's not part of the setup of the skeptical argument. They're simply saying that you have no reason for thinking that you're not a brain in a vat. That's it. So you can't know that you're not a brain in a vat. So this is quite important, because what this means is that skepticism is a problem even if the real life is exactly as you take it to be. Even if everything is optimal from an epistemic point of view, you really are, like in my case, for example, I really am sitting here right now talking to you, surrounded by these objects that I can feel around me and so on. Even if everything is as I take it to be, the skeptical argument still gets its grip, because they're not saying that you're not in these circumstances, or indeed, much less, they're not saying that you're in these terrible circumstances, these brain of vat cases. They're just simply saying, well, how do you know you're not in those circumstances? That's all. And that relates to a second point, which is that the skeptical problem, properly conceived, is a paradox. I mean, what I mean by that is that what the skeptic's trying to do is trying to get you to see that there's a fundamental tension in your own concepts. So, although we talk about the skeptic, someone out there who's trying to convince us of something, I think that's actually misleading. Because really, the problem of skepticism relates to the fact that we have some fundamental commitments in epistemology which are inconsistent with each other. So, it seems like we're committed to the idea we can't know we're not brains in vats, because we think knowing requires telling the difference, and we can't tell the difference between normal life and being a brain in a vat, or the victim of any skeptical hypothesis. So we're committed to that. We also seem committed to thinking that we know lots of things. And yet we also seem committed to the idea, well, look, if I, for example, know that I've got hands, I know that if I've got hands, I'm not a brain in a vat. Well, then I must know I'm not a brain in a vat, right? I mean, it's not possible for me to know that I've got hands and yet not know whether or not I'm a handless brain in a vat. So we've got a bunch of claims here which we're committed to, and they can't all be true. One of them must be false. And that's the nature of a paradox. It's where you've got basic fundamental commitments, where they can't all be true, and where it's just not obvious which one is false. And that, I think, is the best way to think about the skeptical problem. It's not that there's a skeptic out there trying to convince you of anything. Rather, our own concepts, at a very fundamental level, are in tension with one another. And we need to deny something. So we need to either say that we can know we're not brains in vats, i.e. more generally, we've got to be able to say that we can know the denials of skeptical hypotheses, or we have to say that one can know things like whether or not one has hands, even though one doesn't know whether or not one is a handless brain in a vat. Or one has to say that one can't know things like whether or not one has hands. And, either of these options is pretty disturbing. Another point people have made is, does anything practically speaking hinge upon skepticism? Why does it matter from a practical point of view? Well, I think once you recognise that it's a paradox, one gets a bit of a sense of this, so of why it does matter. So recognising there's a paradox, that they've got a set of claims which we're all committed to, but which they can't all be true, so something has to go. That in itself doesn't have any practical ramifications. I mean, because we haven't identified yet which of those claims has to go. But we're at a sort of a state of sort of intellectual unease at this point, because we realise there's something gone wrong somewhere. We can't work out what it is. In responding to a paradox, though, you've got to deny some deeply intuitive claim. And whichever claim you deny, that's going to have practical consequences. Take the option, the nuclear option, of responding to skepticism by saying that we don't know anything. Worse, we have no reason for thinking that we know anything. I'm not sure that it's even psychologically possible, to do that. One can say the words and so on, but actually to fully believe that one really knows nothing. But obviously, if you did, if that's really what you thought your situation was, then it would have all kinds of practical consequences. We make our decisions, our judgments about how to act and what sort of things we're going to do next, and our plans and so on. These are all based upon things that we know or take ourselves to know. Take ourselves to not know anything, then that's going to have huge implications. And I think the same goes for whichever. It's basically a trilemma, the skeptical problem. That is, we've got three options, the three claims in play. One of them has to go. Whichever one we deny is going to lead to disastrous consequences from an intellectual point of view, and they will have practical ramifications. I think sometimes when people say, what's the practical difference, what they mean is a different thought. It's the idea, well, maybe we are brains in vats, maybe not. We can't tell the difference, so who cares? But I think even that is a bit suspect if you start to think about it. If you are a brain in a vat, then none of this is real. Your friends aren't your friends. Your family aren't your family. The things that you're working hard and striving to achieve are utterly pointless because they're not real. So the idea that it kind of doesn't matter. I think it doesn't bear scrutiny really. It can seem superficially plausible, but I don't think it stands up to closer scrutiny. And the last thing that jumped out to me was this idea. Well, some people say, well, what's so bad about lucky knowledge? And I think there's something right about this thought, because clearly, sometimes we do get knowledge through luck. Lucky discoveries, for example. Lots of science is full of cases, penicillin and so on, where through some lucky set of circumstances, scientifically important knowledge was acquired. But notice that kind of luck that's in play here isn't the kind of luck that we're interested, though, for the purposes of this week. We're interested specifically in it being a matter of luck that you get it right. And that's a different kind of thing. So think about a lucky discovery. So you've got some great scientists, but they just happen to be in the right place at the right time to make a lucky discovery. But given that they are in the right place at the right time, it's not a matter of luck that they then get things right. So suppose they make some inferences, draw some conclusions or whatever. The reason why that's genuine knowledge, even though it's a matter of luck that they were in a position to acquire it, is because the beliefs are so formed, it's not a matter of luck that they're getting things right. And I think that's the important thing. When we say knowledge is compatible with luck, we mean, in a very specific sense, it's incompatible with the idea that it's just a matter of luck that you got things right. The scientists, in the case of the lucky discovery, it's not just a matter of luck that they got things right. It's because of their skill, their scientific expertise, they got things right. It'd be very different, if someone who had no inkling of what it was that was on the, take some lucky discovery and it's a Petri dish, let's say, and there's some enzyme in there or what have you, and someone just wanders in, they haven't got a clue what it is they found or whatever. But we wouldn't even be tempted to think that they that's a lucky scientific discovery. I mean, maybe a lucky discovery of a Petri dish, but what makes it a scientific discovery is because the scientist is there able to classify and recognize this for what it is. And given that they can do that, it's not a matter of luck they can do that. That's down to their expertise. So I think we just need to be clear here that when we're talking about how knowledge is incompatible with luck, what we mean is that it can't be a matter of luck that you got things right, given how you formed your beliefs. Okay, I'll let you get back to the discussions. Hope that was useful. Thank you.